Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a first look at a brand new Pokemon in the world of Pokemon Go, Squawkabilly. Now Squawkabilly can be encountered in the wild as a part of the Flying Taxi event, and there are quite a few different color variations. Luckily, the color on Squawkabilly does not end up impacting the stats whatsoever, so regardless of which kind of Squawkabilly you get, it'll still end up being the same Pokemon. Squawkabilly is a normal and flying type Pokemon, and its moveset in-game is Peck, Fly, and Brave Bird. Squawkabilly is more attack weighted, so it's going to have some serious nuke potential when shields are down, but it is going to struggle to absorb charge attacks. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. We get a pretty awkward lead in game number 1, leading Galarian Stunfisk into Seaking. Seaking is able to hit me for big super effective damage every 10 turns courtesy of Drill Run. Now unfortunately, Drill Run does actually pick up the 2-hit KO here. I'm going to look to return fire with the Earthquake, hoping they decide to call a bait, but they will put up a shield. Now I'm going to look to overfarm, switch into the Squawkabilly, and I get the prediction right as I'm able to catch the double resisted Drill Run. Drill Run going to do basically nothing to Squawkabilly, but my opponent has an ability to stay in here. Seaking also runs Icy Wind, that will hit me for big super effective damage, so I will put up the shield and look to farm up. I'm just going to overfarm as much as possible, fire off the Fly, and I believe even at -1, Fly could still be enough to secure the knockout. Fly will be shielded, Seaking is preserved, and now my opponent's going to send in Credilli. I bank energy on Squawkabilly, and now I get to send in the Stunfisk. Earthquake is going to do some pretty significant damage onto that Credilli. Earthquake did get buffed this season, which means that suddenly Galarian Stunfisk is a lot more damage than it used to in the past. Grass Knot, neutral damage, definitely going to be taking me out, but now I can look to send in the Shadow Sableye. Since I have an entire Brave Bird stored on Squawkabilly, if my opponent doesn't have a resistance to flying in the back, they're probably going to get one shot. I look for the max overfarm, but that's a really nice play. My opponent takes advantage of the fact that I was trying to overfarm to CMP tie and snipes me with the Drill Run from Seaking. That pressures away my final shield. I overfarm just shy of 100 and fire off Foul Play. Foul Play will secure the KO. If they bring back in Credilli, I can just knock them out with the Foul Play that I have stored. My opponent is going to wait down the full switch timer, and they reveal their final Pokemon, which is Shadow Sableye. This game is over. In comes Squawkabilly. Brave Bird picks up the one-hit KO. Back in comes Credilli. We get the peck down, and that is a good game. We see a pretty spicy lead from the opponent in the next match as I lead Stunfisk into Melmetal. Melmetal did get a pretty big buff this season. It got access to Dynamic Punch. This means every 10 turns, it's able to hit my Stunfisk for devastating damage. I decide to wait the turn and then go for the bait. I'm hoping by turn waiting, I make my opponent think that it's the Earthquake, and they will end up putting up the shield. Now with that energy saved, I should be able to outpace and make it to the Earthquake. My opponent baits back, they go for the double Iron Bash, they send in Kingdra, and I'm going to respond with the Shadow Sableye. I'm able to make it to the Drain Punch before they get the Surf. Shadow Sableye, it's not known for its bulk, but I can help out the Sableye quite a bit as I artificially increase its bulk with the Drain Punch. Now the Surf from Kingdra, while it will do quite a bit of damage, it won't allow my opponent to get a farm down. That's going to force energy out of this Kingdra, and now I can look to go for big farm with Squawkabilly. I'm hoping that I can get the full peck farm down here. Kingdra pivots out into the Melmetal. Whether they go for double Iron Bash or Dynamic, I should be able to hang on here. They go for the double Iron Bash. I save the energy, pivot into the Stunfisk, and I'm just going straight for the Earthquake. I want to try and punish an O-Shield. Earthquake connects, and Melmetal will fall. So Melmetal is out of the picture. My opponent reveals their final Pokemon is going to be Seaking. Seaking, gonna fire off Drill Run. I have to put up the shield. I do not have the health needed to survive this charge attack. I have a tough call to make. Do I go for the bait or do I full send? I decide to full send here. I fire off the Earthquake. Opponent calls the bait, and that's a big swing of momentum. Now I'm able to make the Rock Slide, and this is going to come down to a 50-50. I'm going to switch into Squawkabilly, go for the Fly, and I'm able to win charge attack priority over the Seaking. If my opponent was able to get a catch there, that could have been absolute catastrophe, but they don't get the catch. We get the peck down with Squawkabilly, and we're able to get the win. We move to the next match, Galarian Stunfisk into Empoleon. Hydro Cannon will hit for super effective damage, but my opponent really has no fast attack pressure here. Hydro can land, I can survive that very comfortably. My opponent tries for a very ambitious triple resisted Earthquake catch, but luckily I overfarmed and now I can connect with Rock Slides. My opponent's not the only one who's going to try and go for a catch though. I'm going to try and go for a catch of Energy Ball onto my Squawkabilly. So I throw one, go for the catch, but my opponent is just simply too patient. They're able to see the switch in, fire off Acrobatics, and that's going to pressure away a shield. If my opponent brings back in Empoleon, my energy is not going to do a lot, but my opponent actually decides to send in the Licky Licky. Licky Licky will fire off a Body Slam right away, but my opponent not sending in the Empoleon, my energy will actually have value here. Unfortunately, I can't make it to a Fly plus a Brave Bird. I'm forced to settle for the double Fly. So I go for the Fly, my opponent does not respect it, and I will go for an Under Tap here to guarantee this damage will land or get a shield. My opponent puts up the shield. I switch back into the Stunfisk, and I'm able to snipe with the Rock Slide. If they want the energy, they're going to have to give you their final shield. They let it go, and all that energy is lost. Back in comes Empoleon. I try for the Rock Slide just to get whatever chip damage I can get. They end up CMP tying, denying that energy, but I now have a very clear path to victory with the Shadow Sableye. So Sableye gets to hit the field. Even though Hydro Cannon would not knock out here, it's always going to be the safe play to put up the shield and then immediately go for the Drain Punch. Drain Punch threatens a knockout, and it's able to boost up my defense, making it so that the Sableye is living up to its nickname of being immortal. So Sableye will be able to absorb this Hydro Cannon with the +1 defense, no problem. Empoleon needs it to knock out, but it just never will. Sableye gets the Shadow Claw down and takes the win. We get a very spicy lead from the opponent in the next match. Stunfisk into Dondozo. I save switch into Sableye. Dondozo farms up a ton of energy and then sends in Shadow Malamar. This is not an answer to Shadow Sableye, so the fact that my opponent switched it in is actually very good news for me. I should be able to flip switch advantage. I overfarm just shy of 100. I do want to go for a slight undercharge here, but I accidentally end up hitting too many bubbles and it knocks out. That's a pretty big error because now I'm only going to get one foul play into the Dondozo instead of two. So I fire off the foul play, Dondozo no shields, but I just don't have enough energy to make foul play number 2. So that failure to undercharge really came back to bite me. Now I can bring in Squawkabilly. I'm expecting my opponent will throw an alignment here just to try and pressure away the final shield, but I have up a lot of energy on this Squawkabilly, so I'm feeling like I'm in a pretty good spot. My opponent reveals their final Pokemon. It's Aegislash, and that is basically the worst case scenario. I can't really do much of anything with Squawkabilly into the Aegislash. Aegislash fires off the Shadow Ball immediately. I cannot let them stay in the Blade form for long and get all that Psycho Cut energy. So I immediately undertap and go for the Rock Slide bait. This is going to limit them to only one Psycho Cut of energy and send them back into the Shield form where they're stuck going for charging. I feel that a bait is too risky because they would survive an Earthquake, so I will decide to full send the Quake here. Quake is going to be shielded. I could go for a potential catch, but I don't end up getting that catch call right, and my opponent's just going to be able to take the knockout here, as they can probably even KO with the Gyro Ball. My opponent does actually go for the Shadow Ball. They pivot out into Dondozo. The game comes down to this. Can Squawkabilly pick up a 2-hit KO with Brave Bird? Brave Bird is resistant. Squawkabilly has a huge attack stat. Brave Bird lands, but unfortunately it's not going to 2-hit KO. I need to peck it into double Brave Bird range, but I'm not able to get there. The second Brave Bird would not have taken the knockout just yet. They make the Gyro Ball, KO Squawkabilly, and unfortunately we lose a heartbreaker of a game. Spicy lead from the opponent in the next match as I lead Stunfisk into Skeleturge. I save switch into Sableye, no answer from my opponent, and I decide to go for a devious Drain Punch bait. The foul play is too threatening, that pressures away a shield. My opponent now sends in Licky Licky, but honestly, I've already had +1 defense, so I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot. I can fire off Drain Punch. Drain Punch will hit for some pretty nice damage, and now that my defense is +2, I should be in a spot where I can survive a Shadow Ball. I end up overfarming, firing off the foul play on the CMP tie, and I'm just very happy to let this go. My opponent can fire off the Shadow Ball, but it's never going to take the knockout, and now I can send in the Stunfisk. I'm very okay absorbing Shadow Balls. My goal is to fully Mudshot down and exit with a ton of energy for the Skeleturge, but my opponent doesn't bring in the Skeleturge. They bring in their final Pokemon, which is going to be Sableye. This is the non-Shadow Sableye. They're going to put up the shield as I fire off the Earthquake and look to boost up their defense with Drain Punch. But Galarian Stunfisk is very, very bulky, so I should be able to hang on here. Drain Punch lands, I survived that very comfortably, and now I get to go for the Earthquake. Even at +1 defense, Earthquake is a very efficient move, and I'm just going to stay in here and let myself get farmed down, but my opponent will fire off energy. There's a chance I could have made a Rock Slide there, I'm not 100% sure, but either way, I'm up 2 shields and I have a Squawkabilly. I should be in a very good spot. Unfortunately, what is not good is the fact that I end up getting 1 turn bring-in lag there. They fire off another Drain Punch. I'm just going to now put up 1 shield, go for the full farm down, and exit with a ton of energy. When they bring in the Skeleturge, I can just knock them out with the Brave Bird, and the game will be over. Because Squawkabilly is going to win charge stack priority into everything. So, I watch the top right, they bring in the Skeleturge, I fire off the Brave Bird, and they make an awesome peekaboo play. They catch the Brave Bird onto Licky Licky, I send in Squawkabilly, defer the Incinerate onto the Sableye, and now I have this game won. Skeleturge can boost itself up with the Torch Song, but they don't have the back-to-back that they would need. So I can throw 2 packs, throw in the Fly on perfect charge stack timing. Even though we're going to get the win, that peekaboo catch from my opponent was absolutely incredible. We move to the next game. Great lead Stunfisk into Shadow Hydreigon. Hydreigon retreats into Shadow Dusknoir, and I make a pretty massive error. I should have sent in Squawkabilly. Squawkabilly's a normal flying type. This is the exact matchup I have Squawkabilly on the team for, but unfortunately I ended up sending in the Sableye instead. Sableye will still do pretty well here, being able to absorb a Shadow Punch and get a shield from my opponent, but now I can send in Squawkabilly and go for the one shield farm down. Unfortunately, I can one-turn bring in again. The one-turn bring-in has been very frustrating this morning. I'm going to look for the full farm down. My opponent pivots out, and they send in Tinkaton. So my opponent was running a team that was hard ABA weak to the Galarian Stunfisk. They pivot out basically out of desperation because they don't really have anything that can beat Stunfisk once that Dusknoir has been neutralized. Their Bulldoze did get the debuff. I full set the Earthquake, and the Earthquake landing will win me the game. They can go for Bulldoze number 2, but Stunfisk is too bulky and simply not going to care. They get a second debuff, but we're still in a very good spot. If they bring in the Hydreigon, Hydreigon's completely energy dry. They bring in Noir. I snipe down with Squawkabilly. Now Squawkabilly will get the double up on flies against Hydreigon. Unfortunately, Shadow Hydreigon, it's a very cool Pokemon. It has insane damage output, but what it does not have is any semblance of bulk. So I just get to fire off the back-to-back flies. First gets the shield, second picks up the one-hit KO, and that's a good game. We pick up a terrible lead in the next match, Galarian Stunfisk into Malamar. Malamar is a huge core breaker for this team. Malamar does incredibly well against Squawkabilly, and it destroys Stunfisk. I landed the Earthquake for big damage, I send in the Sableye, and I'm hopeful that I've caught a superpower. This would be a big swing of momentum, but my opponent baited. They went for the foul play, and now in comes Corviknight. I feel like I'm already in quite a lot of trouble. This team is pretty soft to Corviknight. Stunfisk isn't a big fan of Corviknight. Squawkabilly is going to be completely walled, and they're going to get a perfect overfarm here against this Sableye. I'm just going to let the Sableye go. Air Cutter will take the knockout, but my opponent does end up getting the boost. That is a little bit tragic. I believe they even have enough for the payback now as well. Boosted payback, big damage onto the Stunfisk. I look to overfarm, and they switch back into the Malamar. Malamar snipes me down. I'm forced to let this go. I can't let Squawkabilly be without a shield. I send in the Squawkabilly, but I can't get the farm down. Malamar hangs on, and unfortunately, this game's over. There's just no way out for me. I'm down a shield. I'm in a ton of trouble, and it's going to be a Shadow Qwilfish in the back. Very spicy pick from my opponent, you gotta respect it, but unfortunately Qwilfish just has too much speed. Qwilfish is easily gonna double up before it can make it to 3 flies, so I'm not gonna waste anyone's time. I just no shield, and Squawkabilly will get KO'd. Hopping to the final match, we lead Galarian Stunfisk into a Kanto Ninetales. Now, this is a bit of an awkward Pokemon for this team. Now, my opponent, I don't know if they ended up lagging there at the start or what ended up happening. It looked like they may have missed the fast move. They fire off Weather Ball. I'm going to be no-shielding. I'm going to farm up to the Earthquake and go for the Rock Slide bait. Even if they end up no-shielding, Rock Slide would still do a lot. They do make a really nice bait call, and now I send in the Shadow Sableye. I know Weather Ball not going to do a ton of damage here, so I'm pretty okay absorbing this damage. My opponent's going to pivot out and send in Jumpluff. Jumpluff is a bit of a problem Pokemon for Sableye. Sableye can land Foul Play, but Foul Play really doesn't do a lot to Jumpluff. Jumpluff with a perfect overfarm, gonna farm up 4 Fairy Winds and take the knockout with Energy Ball. My game plan here is pretty simple. I'm gonna try and go for a one-shield peck down with Squawkabilly. The pecks are adding up quite a bit, but I have to get the shield call right on the acrobatics. So I put up the shield, there's the full send as they go for the acrobatics, and they pivot out and reveal their final Pokemon is Fearow. This is where things could get a little bit scary. I fire off Fly, Fearow puts up the shield, I make it to Fly number 2, but unfortunately I haven't yet done enough peck damage to where I can knock them out with the Rock Slide. However, I'm forced to pivot out because I need to be able to outpace the Fearow. I need to land the Rock Slide before Fearow is able to get the double drill run. I'm barely able to outpace, but it's not going to be by much. I fire off Rock Slide, Fearow is going to barely survive, and Fearow's going to save energy and then pivot into the Ninetales. Ninetales racing to the Weather Ball, unable to get there. I'm able to make the Rock Slide, and Rock Slide will secure the KO. My opponent now can send in the Jumpluff. Jumpluff should just look to go for the CMP tie, but I'm able to get the game-winning catch onto Squawkabilly. Squawkabilly able to absorb the Energy Ball. Now I can get the full farm down. This forces the Fearow to have to farm me down, but I survive the peck, make it to the Fly, and that's gonna be a win. I had the Rock Slide loaded on Stunfisk, so they needed the farm down to win, but they just simply cannot get it. And now some final thoughts on Squawkabilly and its meta viability. Squawkabilly is the latest in a long line of pretty glassy normal flying types. There's Shadow Toucanon, there's Fearow, there's Dodrio, and now there is Squawkabilly. Now, unfortunately, I would say a lot of the other normal flyers already do what Squawkabilly would want to do, but better. There's Firo, which has straight 5 pacing instead of the 665 to fly, and Firo has access to drill runs, so Firo just gives you better coverage overall. And if you're looking just for a mono flying moveset, it's hard to go wrong with the straight 5 pacing of Drill Peck and the insane nuke potential of Beak Blast. Beak Blast, as opposed to Brave Bird, being able to debuff your opponent rather than debuff yourself, means that Shadow 2 Cannon is almost always going to be preferred over Squawkabilly. So I don't think Squawkabilly is an atrocious Pokemon. I think it's a fine Pokemon. It's releasing with a decent moveset, but unfortunately, Squawkabilly's biggest crime is the opportunity cost that running it takes. And that means basically if you're running Squawkabilly, then you can't run a Firo or a 2 Cannon, which would do what it wants to do, but better. So overall, Squawkabilly's a fine Pokemon. As with most Glassy Brave Bird users, if you're ever able to get it up some energy, it's going to pop off. It's going to have some highlight moments. It's going to be able to one-shot like the Sableye in game number 1. But if it's down energy or kind of in these neutral matchups when shields are in play, the fact that it's 665 to fly instead of a lot of these other normal flying types having access to Drill Peck, which is straight 5, its slow pacing does kind of get exposed. So overall, Squawkabilly's a fine Pokemon, definitely a fun event to play. Catch as many colors of Squawkabilly as you can. I don't know what the distribution of colors looks like. I believe the colors that I was able to find a yellow one, and I think I was able to find a blue Squawkabilly as well. I did see a silhouette on my radar. I don't know what that silhouette color was for. Maybe there's more colors than blue and yellow, but blue and yellow were the ones that I was able to find while going out this morning. But definitely an event worth playing and grabbing a Squawkabilly for later in case it gets an insane move update. But for now, I would argue there's existing Pokemon that do what it wants to do, just in a more convincing manner. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching today's video, please do help support the channel by leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And an extra special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide to the channel is so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.